Readers Entertainment Radio presents Booklights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Booklights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Hello, everyone. It's Monday again. How can this be? Anyway, 2020 is like the longest year ever, and also it's already July. What? Anyway, today we have a YA fantasy author back on. She's actually a returning guest, Suzy Vadori. And if you have not met her before, I'm going to read her bio for you. She has a brand new book out, and I can't wait to talk about it. So, Suzy Vadori is a book coach, editor, public speaker, and the Calgary best-selling author of the Fountain series, which is the Wall of Wishes is the new one that we're going to talk about. This fantastical young adult series has received 2 Aurora nominations for Best YA Novel, as well as 5 stars and a bronze medallion from the Reader's Favorite Book Awards. She's represented by Naomi Davis of Bookends Literary Agency. It's Monday. I can't read. Suzy lives in Calgary, Canada, with her husband and 3 children, and is an involved member of the writing community. She's a program manager for Calgary's When Words Collide and teaches writing at Alexandra Writers Center Society. She's a touring member of the Young Alberta Book Society, and she's also the founder of Write It, a creative writing program for schools. So she's very busy. And I did put a link to Suzy's website right there on the blog talk. So if you're listening live, you can click that anytime, sign up for her newsletter, check out what's coming up for her. And without any further delay, are you there, Suzy?
I sure am. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. And you have a new book, Wall of Wishes, right? Can you tell us why we need to get it this week?
Oh, my goodness, yes. A Wall of Wishes and launching during a pandemic has been a totally brand new experience, and it's actually been a lot of fun. Wall of Wishes is really the culmination of the whole Fountain series. You can read it as a standalone, too, and it'll make sense. But it really answers all of the questions that my readers had about the world of St. Augustus and the magic of the school, the boarding school that the kids attend. So the series is about 16-year-old Ava, and she moves from San Francisco to New England to find out more about her mom, who died when she was 10. And when she gets there, her reputation's preceded her, and the kids aren't very nice, and all kinds of crazy things happen to poor Ava, and she gets really upset, and she runs into the woods, and she finds a mysterious fountain, like the one that's on the cover of the fountain, and the whole series is named after. And she makes a wish on the fountain that one of the girls that she just met had never existed. And when she returns to the boarding school, the girl is gone, and absolutely everything in her whole life is different, even her own family. She has to find out about the magic of the school that she goes to and the history of her own family. She meets a boy and all that stuff, and it's a lot of fun. The series is about, and in Wall of Wishes, Ava actually has to work with her nemesis, Courtney. So Courtney returns to the school. She's the girl who got wished away in the fountain, and they have to work together because the Wall of Wishes actually records all of the wishes that have ever been made over the last 100 years on that fountain. And one of the wishes is actually Ava's dad made it he wished for her mother's love. And the fountain is going to be destroyed because the Westwoods have been sold. And what they're worried about is that this wish will get undone. And if the wish gets undone that her father wished for her mother's love, then Ava may no longer exist. And so she's very motivated to save the fountain.
Wow. And is there like a running theme of like, be careful what you wish for, right? One wish changes everything, that butterfly effect?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And that was part of the fun of the series, was trying to weave that together, because it almost becomes time travel, because you're actually able to erase history with wishes. And then they wish on top of each other, and there's tons of wishes in the whole series. And so the kids are making wishes without really thinking through the consequences. And yeah, that's what the series is about. And it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's so cool. So is this the final book, or will there be others?
Well, right now we're saying it's the final book. I really think it is. It really wraps up lots of other things. And I've written a couple of books in new series. I mean, I'll never close the door. But I really tried to make it sort of speak to everything that all the readers over the years have asked about the fountain and have wanted to know, so that it would really wrap that whole thing up. I'm already planning some sort of extra content, so I don't know that I'm quite ready to leave the world. We'll see.
Right. It's very hard to leave them behind. I wanted to ask, you said you have other things that you're tinkering with. Are they all YA fantasy, or are there other genres that you want to write?
So I think they are. I will definitely stay in YA. I've spent a lot of years now, with a name built up for YA. And originally, when I first started writing, I didn't really realize this whole, that writing the book is just part of it. As everybody knows, right? Writing the book is one part of becoming an author, and everything else is supporting that and supporting your readers and getting out there and figuring all that out. And I've really figured that out in terms of where my readership is for young adults. And so I think it would be difficult for me, not impossible to write, but I'm not really interested in creating a whole nother persona, because generally if you write outside of young adult, you would use a pen name just so that kids don't pick up something that isn't intended for kids. But yeah, so definitely YA. I am tinkering with this series. The Fountain series is magical realism, so it's fantasy, but it's set in a real world time with just some magical elements in it. I also have written I'm starting a new series where I have the first book written. It's currently with my agent, and it is complete fantasy, so in a fantastical world that isn't Earth. And then I actually am working on a contemporary novel this summer that's set in Nova Scotia, which is where I'm from, on the east coast of Canada, which is actually where I am right now, overlooking the ocean.
Oh, so nice. Do you guys get like warm summers up there, or is it always kind of cool?
No, it's quite well. Where I am is a 5-hour plane ride from where I live, so very different. I live north of Montana, in Calgary, and it doesn't ever really get that hot in the summer. It's kind of temperate, I'd say. We do get hot days, but it cools off at night. Right now I'm on the east coast of Canada, which is north of Maine, and it gets quite hot and muggy here, so it's great. I mean, obviously it gets cold in the winter, but yeah, it's quite warm here right now.
Okay, yeah, I just wonder because I think of Great White North, and I'm like, does it get hot there?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. We have seasons, fall, winter, spring, summer. So yeah, all those seasons. But winter is definitely the longest, and sometimes it skips over summer, or spring and fall are mere suggestions, and sometimes it's like summer, winter, summer, winter. So one or the other.
Oh well,
feast or famine.
Yeah, you get a week of, was that spring?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, what draws you to writing fantasy? Do you enjoy, the magic, the creatures? What is it that, that makes your muse go crazy for fantasy?
Absolutely. I think I really do enjoy the magic. As I mentioned, I'm working on a contemporary novel, but actually there's a supernatural element that just crept its way in. So I'm having a discussion with my agent as to whether or not that's what she had in mind. But yeah, I just really think, for me, as a book coach, and I also edit as well, and so I work with lots of people, and what really comes alive for me in the writing, what really, captures my muse, as you just said, is being able to do those show, don't tell elements. And I know it's a basic concept, but it's a concept that's so worth hammering on through your whole writing life. And being able to demonstrate that beauty and that sort of larger than life, and have that image just explode in your readers' minds. And so I find that magic or fantasy in some way is just able to do that a lot more than contemporary. So that's why I have these other elements creeping in, because I just find I just love those moments where they can see this thing that you've imagined because of the beautiful words that you've used. And obviously your characters interacting with it and experiencing this, but yeah, I like that sort of larger than life element for sure. And creatures, you asked about creatures. I think that's so cool. It's really, really on trend in YA to have creatures in your books, and I keep meaning to do that. And in my outlines, there's always magical creatures, and they don't make it into my books. It's just not something I write. about.
Oh, dang.
So, yeah, I know. I love it, and I love reading about it. I'm not, it's just not where I go. Like, my books are really character driven, yes, but they're really about the relationships and about being human and being flawed and that struggle, and it just doesn't have that much space for other creatures, I guess. I don't know. I'm gonna do it yet. It's like a personal
maybe
challenge.
the high fantasy.
yeah, totally. Where they're basically human. They just haven't made it in. My last that pure fantasy book that I talked about originally that was one of my goals, was actually to bring in creatures, and the outline had like sea creatures, and it had I don't even remember what I had, but they were beautiful, unique creatures, and I wrote the book and realized I didn't put them in. So, yeah, they'll be in a future book, I guess. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Well, I write paranormals, and I always enjoy the high stakes, because when I read, I like escapism. I like to, be out of our regular problems. And so for me, it's always the draw of the high stakes and total escapism. Is that part of it for you too?
Absolutely. And I think writing for young adults too, I feel like it's easier in fantasy to come up with things that aren't too, I've got 3 kids myself. My oldest is 14 and my youngest is 8. And so I find that they find some things really scary, and if you make them too true to life, then sometimes it's a little bit too raw for those younger readers, even if they're strong readers. And so I really find that in fantastical elements, you can still bring in those same themes, the be wary of strangers, or be careful what you wish for, all of those things, but in a way that they can digest it a little bit better. So that might be part of it too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially with YA, and it's funny, when that's where your heart is, you can try to write something that doesn't have that in there. But I agree, every time I've tried to write something contemporary, all of a sudden someone finds something magic, or there's somebody who's more than what they seem, and I'm like, dang.
Yeah, and I think there's a real need for contemporary right now, and my voice sort of lends itself to that. I love writing in first person, and so there's a real gap there, and I think but there is a paranormal element in this book that I'm writing now, so hopefully it gets to stay there, because I think it just makes that whole contemporary feel of it even much more interesting when they're grappling with this, like, is this real? Is this not real? It's kind of fun.
Right. So who inspires you? Who do you like to read that fires you up and you go, oh my gosh, I have to go right now?
Oh my goodness. I've got to say, I read a whole variety of things. I was originally inspired by Gordon Corman. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a Canadian writer. He started writing as a teenager, but when I was younger, he's still writing, but that was 30 years ago or more that he started writing. But yeah, he wrote sort of middle grade boarding school novels, which I thought were super cool and probably influenced me heavily, even though I don't write middle grade. It's the boarding school concept is really cool. I like to read anything that's a bestseller. And that sounds really shallow, but that's not why. It's not because it's amazing writing or anything else. It's just I'm always fascinated. What is it that sort of draws people to books and makes something that explodes when literary critics might say, well, this is not well written or whatever. There's got to be something good about it, right, that actually worked. And so I find it really fascinating to wade through in all genres. I read a lot of women's fiction. I'm in 2 book clubs, so I read a lot of women's fiction and a lot of sort of the bestseller stuff. And I just find it just absolutely amazing to talk to people, especially people who aren't in the literary world, about what it is that draws them to books. And that really helps me in my own practice, especially when I'm coaching other people to write books in other genres. It helps me to make sure that there's elements, no matter what their story is, that there's elements that really speak to the reader and that are going to work for their reader. Because I think that that's something that especially newer writers don't always think about, is how is the reader going to react to it, right? And keep turning it around and say, well, how is the reader going to respond? And I think that really came from the amazing response I had to The Fountain, which is book 1 in the series, when I started getting feedback from readers that were like, oh, wow, I just love this, or I love that, or they wanted to talk about the romance in it. And that just surprised me what it was that they wanted to talk about. It made me really start paying attention to what it was that readers were drawn to in books.
Yeah, and I think, too, that so often, especially because we're writers and we're trying, to hone our craft and all that kind of thing, but it comes back to storytelling. And sometimes books aren't written well, but the story draws people in. I mean, who knew? And also who's the target market. I wasn't a huge Twilight fan, but my daughter was in high school and she loved it. And I tried. And I was like, okay, the high school angst, I can't do it. But obviously I was not the target market, and it was, a huge success. So, yeah, I think that it is really interesting to see, because a lot of times it's the story that speaks more than the actual writing,
Absolutely. It's the story, and whether or not the story has a point, I think, is something that, I talk about a lot with my coach, like with other writers, is what point are you trying to make? And does everything in your book actually point to the same theme? Because we forget about that. And when you write a novel, you've got to put a lot of stuff in the novel, right?
Right.
If you've written a novel, then an outline is just an outline, and you've got to have lots of stuff to fill up a book. But if it's not related, then it can feel really distracting, or it can slow the pace, or it can do other things. And so making sure that you know what it is that you're trying to say, about humanity, or about people, or about whatever it is that you're trying to say, and don't hit us over the head with it and come out and say it, but how do your characters act in that world, and what is that change in that character arc that all sort of leads to that point that readers can follow and feel something, right? If you feel something,
right.
If the readers feel something, then you've done it right.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned outline. Does that mean you're a big-time plotter?
Oh, not at all, actually. Not at all. So I call myself, as a book coach. Actually, I admit that, though. And for some people, large outlines really work for them. And I think that's great. People who write huge story grids, like you've seen them where they can fill a whole wall. I don't know if you do that, or sticky notes, or however
I don't do that.
No, I don't do it
right.
either, and I actually am doing it less and less the more books I write, which is not awesome. But I think I hold it in my head. I still outline. So what I actually do is with my book coaching clients, I have a number of different methodologies that have kind of merged, and depending on the client, work with different ones. So somebody who loves that big story grid, great, we'll work with it. But otherwise, most people don't. I work with something that's from Author Accelerator. And it's called the Insight Outline. So it's a 2-page outline, and it basically goes through and describes the major scenes, not all the scenes, the major scenes in your book, and it says the scene and what's the point. So we talked about what's the point, right? So here's the scene, and how is that driving your character's change? What is it actually driving? And it's super quick and dirty. But you can see that whole thing, and I work with my clients on that, and you can see everything about that book. You can see in 2 pages, and then you can know if it's going to work or not. And it's actually pretty incredible, because if you don't have a reason for having that scene in there, take it out, right? And that's frustrating when people have written, their first draft. But so anyway, so that's what I do. But I call myself a quilter. So there's plotters and there's pantsers who fly by the seat of their pants, right? And I'm somewhere in between.
Right.
I do an outline, and then I kind of write it out of order. So I've met other writers who do this. I don't think it's that unique, but because I'm a busy mom, and when I first started writing, I was also a business executive. I've since let go of my job as a vice president to become a writer full time, which has been fun and interesting and amazing, but with a leap. And so depending on my mood, I take a scene in that outline that I feel like writing, or the mood that I'm in, or whatever's exploding in my brain that day. That's what I write. And it's not the most efficient way to write. And the former operations executive in me thinks, oh my goodness, there's got to be a better way to do this. But it's an iterative process. And I think, if you've got everything there for a scene and you write it when you're feeling it, then you're going to have your best writing. And that's why I think that readers actually connect with my stories, is because I've done it that way. It's not efficient, but I think it's got heart and soul. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I talk to so many authors doing the show, and it's always fascinating to me. Everyone has a different process, but one thing that follows all the way through is everyone goes, but every book is different. And I have found that to be so true. I have some books that write themselves, and I'm like, hey, I know how to do this. And then you do the next book, and you're like, oh, I can't. Nothing's working. So I really feel like, it's different depending on which book you're writing.
It is, and I think, this is the third book in the trilogy, and I actually struggled with Wall of Wishes, the book that we're launching now. I struggled with it the most because it had so many expectations around, I've got this world, I've got this. Isn't it, you always think it's going to be easier to write book 2 in a series because you already have the world and you have the characters, and then you sit down to write it with the same outline. You're like, oh, but I already have the world and the characters. What am I going to write about? Right? Because you can't rediscover everything again. So you have to make your world bigger, and you have to make your characters different, and you have to, throw different obstacles in their way and make everything really change. And so for Wall of Wishes, the first draft of it, I knew exactly what needed to happen. I knew how to answer all of the questions, and it just was missing some magic for me because I did go through and I was able to do it, rather quickly, the first draft. And then I sat on it for a long time because I really wanted it to have that same magical quality that the first 2 books had. And I was like, what if my readers hate it? Whatever. And I went back to the drawing board, and I actually ended up, what I did to make it feel fresh in my eyes, and I enjoy the challenge too, is the other books are written from a single perspective, and they're in third person. And I actually switched Wall of Wishes to be dual perspective because the 2 girls have to work together. So it's dual perspective, and I wrote it in first person just to give myself permission to sort of break some of the things that I'd done in the books before and make it feel really different. And the reaction has been incredible. I don't think that most readers even notice that it's in first person or third person. When I did send it to my editor, he went a little bit crazy. He's like, you can't do that. You can't do that.
You're breaking all the rules.
Like, well, I just did it. So I ended up, I'm like, I'm not changing it. It's the right thing to do for this book. And I know it's the right thing because I've sent it to, my 17 beta readers, and most of them are teens. And they're like, this was amazing. And not one of them noticed. So
right.
Like, it's what I had to do to get that sort of spirit of it on the page. And so that's what I did. And I think it turned out tremendous. Right?
Yeah, well, and I think that,
fresh.
Again, that goes back to, that the readers just care about the story, and we think there's all these rules, but the reality is if the story's there, they don't care about the rules, right?
Yeah, I think that grammar is, honestly, an editor can help you with that. I can help you with that, but an editor can help you with that. And I don't think that, those rules around it, and it's difficult to share the rules, and I think that's where I was really compelled to give back, and why I actually work with other writers is because, I've spent a decade learning, and I don't think that it's something that you can learn just by taking a class. And I don't think that it's something that even many successful writers are aware of what they're doing. And so because of my background of operations and sort of trying to put processes together, I think I've been able to pick up on a lot of ways to not streamline. It's never going to be faster. I wish I could tell you I could, I'll be one of those guys on Facebook. You'll write a book in a month by mine. No, that's not what I'm suggesting. But I can help you skip the learning curve by showing you how it works in your readers' brains. And I'm a huge proponent of Lisa Kessler, Story Genius and Wired for Story, and how it actually affects your readers' brains. And those books, teens especially, like I'm competing with video games and, Snapchat. I've got to make a book that they can't put down because it lights up their brains, right? So how do you write like that? And I think that applies for all genres, but it's especially prominent in teens.
Right. Well, for people who have never read your books before, what did your writing journey look like? Because did you always want to be a writer? Did you start writing this book, when you had your kids? What's your story to get to being a published author?
Yeah, so it's a long journey. It's a long journey,
right?
I think, I always knew that I would write a book. I mean, I look back at sort of my kindergarten and grade school things, and it says I'm going to be an author. But I never actually, when you're growing up, that was never presented as one of the career opportunities. I never thought it could be a job. So I always knew that I would write a book one day. I had no idea what that book would be, but I knew that I was going to do it because I love writing. And I always have. I wrote a lot of half books as a tween and teen, so I never finished them, but I wrote some books. But so I know that that's something that really I'm passionate about. I can sit for, 14 hours and write and just be lost in my own brain. So I knew that was something that I really could do and wanted to do. And I spent a lot of time doing writing as a business executive as well. I often did our grant proposals or, dry stuff, but it wasn't hard for me. And I realized really early in my career, when people would be like, how did you come up with that PowerPoint presentation? I'm like, I don't know. I just listened to everything everybody else was saying and wrote it down. It just wasn't hard for me, but they were like, wow, that was amazing, right? So the reaction told me that I was doing something a little bit differently. But yeah, I actually did sit down to write the first draft of The Fountain on maternity leave with my third child, and she's turning 9 in 3 days. So she... and everybody says, how did you write a book on maternity leave? Well, my kids napped. I just was determined.
Right.
But I did go back to work. Yeah, but in Canada we get a year off, and I actually took a little more than that with my third,
nice.
Just because I was able to. But yeah, I did go back to work, and so it took me 2.5 years to finish The Fountain. It took me 2 more years to find a publisher, which I found through attending writing conferences and getting involved in the writing community in Calgary. And then, when The Fountain came out, and they contacted for the next book, and then I wrote that while working full time. And then after The Westwoods came out, I started being asked to speak and teach, and to, I do a lot of public speaking at events, which has all dried up, which is why I'm doing a lot more coaching now. But yeah, I've become a keynote speaker, and I was taking 7 days off a month to go do author stuff off my job as a vice president at a company. I was like, okay, something's wrong here. So I had to, I was able to pivot through sort of cobbling it together. And I really enjoy talking to writers about how they're cobbling a writing career together, because it doesn't mean that you're writing full time. It means, supporting your books that are already out, making appearances. What else are you doing? What other income streams are you finding? And that's super fun and unique for every single person. And I just tell authors to play to their strengths and talk to them about, what it is that they think they can do, and then find a way to make an income out of it to support their writing. So.
Right. And you have to be very creative during a pandemic and learn to do many things online, right?
Yes, absolutely. Launching during the pandemic, especially for kids who aren't really, out there looking for books in the same way that adults might be. I'm used to doing a series of events. I travel across the province that I live in and attend schools. I do Comic-Cons. I speak at big events. I go to girl power type events, which is amazing. I support Kids Help Phone, which is a national crisis line. And so we travel together to different events and talk about my books. And just out there in the public meeting people is how I've made my bread and butter. And so this is a bit of a pivot this spring for sure.
Yeah, but we're all learning, and hopefully many people will find your books. And we're running out of time, so I just wondered, how can readers get in touch with you? Are you on Facebook, Instagram? Where do they find you?
I am on everything. I'm on everything. Just type in my last name, V as in Victor, Adori, and you will find me. My website is suzyvadori.wordpress.com.
Yes, and I put a link right there on the Blog Talk site. So everybody get in touch with Suzy, grab her new book, and The Wall of Wishes. And thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Lisa.
See you later.
Thanks for joining us on
Bye.
Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.
The Hollywood Reporter is your ultimate source for awards race news this fall. Go to thr.com to keep up with this award season's expert predictions from executive editor Scott Feinberg, and tune into the Hollywood Reporter's Awards Chatter podcast for exclusive interviews with the biggest names in showbiz. Stay in the loop with daily newsletters providing real-time updates on all the awards action. Subscribe to thr.com for full access to the Hollywood Reporter and never miss a moment of this fall awards season. Visit thr.com today.
What is going on? It's Shelby Sauce from Intern John and your morning show on Z1043. And football is finally back, and Safeway makes sure Ravens fans have all their game day needs to tailgate or host like a pro. Whether it's in-store, delivery, or drive-up, where an experienced Safeway associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it all right to your car. Don't fumble the snacks. Download the Safeway app today and spend more time enjoying the game by shopping at Safeway, the official supermarket of the Baltimore Ravens.